All right, guys, a quick note about this image here in the slide. It shows you kind of a breakdown of largest to smallest where we find genetic information. So we're studying genetics, but what does that mean? And what is a gene and where do you find it? So this is the best breakdown I've seen so far that kind of shows us what we're looking at and where our genetic information is stored. So y'all hopefully know that all living things are made of one or more cells. If you're a bacteria or an amoeba or a protist, you might just have one cell. In our case, we have tens of trillions of cells in our bodies. And so we also have pretty sophisticated cells, humans and mammals. And our cells all have inside of them this thing called a nucleus. Nucleus is kind of like the brain of a cell, and we'll study this in Hexter 6, but it contains all of the genetic information that our body needs to build us and run us. It's the blueprint for who we are. Okay, so inside the nucleus, our genetic information is stored as these things called chromosomes. You've probably seen them and heard about them. They're these little X-shaped things. But really what a chromosome is just a bunch of wound up DNA threads. So kind of like thread would be on a spool, like wrapped up or yarn. Chromosomes are just these X-shaped wrapped up threads. If you were to start pulling apart a chromosome, almost like, pulling on a thread on a sweater while it's coming undone, you'd start to see this unwinding. And what you're unwinding then is, of course, the DNA, this huge thread of deoxyribonucleic acid. Every cell in our body contains enough DNA that if you unwound it, it would be about 6 feet long. So you figure that's for every cell times trillions of cells. We've got a lot of DNA. And DNA makes us who we are. This is our blueprint. Now, if you take your DNA and you cut it into little sections, every different section is a code for one of your traits or several of your traits. And all these different sections are called genes. So like this gene right here, this little section of DNA might code for eye color. And this section might code for height. This section might code for whether or not I can roll my tongue. This section may code whether or not I go through male pattern baldness. This one might determine whether or not I have breast cancer. So you can see every single section of this really long strand of DNA determines something about me. And so the big takeaway from this I'd like you to remember is that every cell has a nucleus, which contains all of our chromosomes. Humans have 23 pairs of chromosomes. We get 23 chromosomes from our father, 23 from our mother, which gives us a total of 46 chromosomes, but we usually say 23 pairs. Those chromosomes unwind and they contain our DNA, which is this big long thread. And then sections of that DNA that code for traits are called genes. So remember kind of this breakdown of largest to smallest, and we'll talk about what each of these things does and is in more detail later. Thank ya.